Hello, sir. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
All well, just a relatively busy day. This is exactly what happens when you've been organizing a conference and you have to deal with a lot of administrative people. So all the Sarkari admin work is kind of underway, and that's been keeping me busy lately. So
Okay.
sorry, I remember that we were supposed to do this a little earlier, but then things really didn't turn out the way I had expected. How are things with you? How is 2023 treating you?
Just started. So, yeah, it's going well. I mean, so far, so good.
Okay, okay,
Right.
good.
Yes. So how is that? I mean, I wasn't aware that IIT Bombay has an undergraduate program in economics.
Yes, now in fact it's got a dedicated department of economics as well. It's a very, very recent thing.
Okay.
So we've recently organized the Econometric Society, the Asian chapter, the Econometric Society conference, the Asian chapter, and it has come to India after a good 10 years. The last time the Asian chapter of the Econometric Society um, the last Asian meeting of the Econometric Society happened in the Delhi School of Economics back in 2012. This is December, so just about 10 years.
In 2012. Okay.
December, that's right, yeah.
I was in my college that time. Okay. Right.
Mhm.
Okay. So, so thank you first of all, sir, for giving me this time. I mean, I won't be taking a lot of your time, but I just
No,
wanted.
no, not to worry at all. Always happy to, talk to students. And can I request you to please stop addressing me as sir?
Okay.
Um, let's just keep this informal. Feel free to address me, using my first name. I'd actually, in fact, prefer that.
Sure, sure. So, I would like to kind of inform our audience about, how beautiful and how vast your experience has been and what your profile is. So, Dr. Subrato Banerjee is an assistant professor in IIT Bombay, and he has been a behavioral scientist for Queensland University of Technology, which seems to be a very exciting profile in itself. And I would definitely love to know more about what behavioral science is all about. And he has also been a mathematician with Indian Mathematics Consortium, and he has also been associated with ISI for many years. So that's a very huge and a very fascinating profile, sir. So welcome, and we hope to have a very
Thank
good
you.
session with you.
It's
Uh,
it's a pleasure to be here.
the topic chosen for the day is an excellent one, and it is on how nature is an economist in itself. So, what we have seen is that over the past 70 years or so, we have had a successful story on many frontiers. We have seen that people have become comparatively healthier, they are living longer, they have prospered, the income has been rising. But one thing that has kind of been a pinch point has been the nature and how we have been degrading nature, and there has been a continuous focus on what sustainable development is, and because of this, actually, we have tend to launch many new spheres in economics. We never had environmental economics earlier, which we now have as a full-fledged course, I think so. So I think so
Is
this.
it really? Is it a dedicated semester program in? I don't know. You're an undergraduate student, I take, no?
We do, yes, yes, yes.
Ah,
Environmental
okay.
economics is a program, and there are many institutes which are dedicating as a full 2 years master's degree on environmental economics now.
All right. Okay.
So,
Okay.
so I think so. This has kind of been now a very, very important aspect of an economist life. I remember when I was in my college, we did a project full-fledgedly only on understanding how econometrics can be applied in the environmental domain. So over to you, and I would really love to understand your views on how nature is an economist and how we can coincide the two things together.
All right. So I'm going to very quickly begin with a very quick disclaimer. And here it is. So when I say that nature is an economist, I'm actually attributing some agency to nature, and not just agency. Um, also some element of intent. But then when I say that nature is an economist, what I essentially mean is that nature is an economist in the same way that the gene is selfish. You see what I'm saying? You see where I'm going with this, right? Now, it is very arrogant of mankind to think that only we are the people who are capable of thinking of trade-offs here. All right. So, in reality, you'll find trade-offs that are being faced by almost every single agent. That has at least ever been uh, that has ever at least had a thinking faculty. So here's an example. I think a good motivating example would be the T-Rex. You know, a hungry, mean dinosaur, and we've all seen images of it, cartoon images of it, which sometimes manage to look scary, sometimes funny. Um, so this is a very serious carnivore that we're talking about, okay? And it had to survive by hunting, and by chasing after prey. But then, what is the key ability that is needed to chase? Um, so, what is the key ingredient for you to? What is the key skill? What is the key toolkit for you to chase behind a prey, behind your prey? Um, the ability to run. Am I right? And what do you need to be able to run? You need some muscle power. Where does muscle power come from? What is the key ingredient for muscle power?
The nature. Who is giving them?
Muscles, right? Right. So
The
so
way
now, yeah. So now we're talking about a very serious carnivore that needs to chase, that needs to run uh, behind its prey, because you need food to survive, right? And when you're running behind prey, you need the power to run, right? And you need muscle power, but you can't have muscle power without muscles, right? So now think about how much muscles are really needed, to be able to sustain uh, the energy to be able to run for that long, right? Um, Here's where we actually come to the question of balance. You see, more muscles, more thigh muscles from the perspective of the T-Rex also means a greater amount of weight to carry with yourself, right? And if you're carrying a lot of weight with yourself, running too fast becomes a bit of a constraint,
right.
right? So now over here we're really looking at this constant balance of marginal benefits vis-a-vis marginal costs. What are the marginal benefits? The probability of being able to catch prey, right? And any increase, any marginal increase, any incremental increase in the probability of catching prey is always beneficial, right? But what are the costs? The costs are the amount of energy that you'll end up spending if you have more muscles to carry yourself with, right? So where does that balance really have? Where does that balance really occur, right? And as it turns out, nature really got it right on its own without any help. And that's what is really fascinating, because um, when we're thinking about economics, we're really thinking about demand versus supply. We're thinking about marginal revenue versus marginal cost. We're always thinking about weighing one thing against the other, right? And as it turns out, it is, like I said before, even it is kind of arrogant to say that only human beings are kind of conscious of these trade-offs. The truth is that you don't need any element of consciousness at all, right? Nature had it right. We all are aware that the T-Rex was a perfect hunting machine. And it is indeed the perfect hunting machine, because nature did, over several generations, manage to strike that balance. It managed to get that balance, right? Those T-Rexes that had a great deal of muscles on their thighs couldn't run that fast, and therefore they couldn't have survived long enough, because they couldn't catch prey efficiently, right? On the other hand, those skinny T-Rexes, if you will, which had no muscle power at all, uh, you know, uh, they wouldn't have the power to run to begin with, right? And therefore no prey for them. So it's always this balance, this neat a middle ground, a middle point between the two extremes, that really optimized the problem for the T-Rex. And the T-Rex is not the only example. I mean, we're all aware of the honeybee, for example. The honeybee has managed to I think a good starting point would be that honeybees have never attended Johannes Kepler's lectures on stacking problems. Am I right? It's a safe assumption. So Johannes Kepler was uh, he was a very interesting person. He primarily was interested in addition to astrophysics, in addition to astronomy, he was interested in stacking problems. So, for example, if I were to give you a circle, a two-dimensional circle, and ask you how many circles of like size can you surround this original circle with, what's your answer?
Okay, I think.
Try it out. So you have a circle of a given radius. Let's just say radius 1. How many circles of radius 1 can you surround this original circle with?
Many.
The
Infinite.
answer is 6. That's the best that you could do.
Without overlapping.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Right.
So all these 6 circles will be tangential, not just to the original circle, but every single circle will be tangential to exactly 3 other circles, 2 by its sides and 1 which is the original circle, right? And if you were to imagine drawing lines through the centers of these 3 circles, you will actually get an equilateral triangle. Right. And then, if you were to stack up these equilateral triangles, you'll get exactly 6 equilateral triangles stacked up to form a very neat hexagon. Right. Now, what is so special about a hexagon? Have we looked at beehives? Not from close enough, I hope. At least not here in India. Fun fact: honey bees in Australia, they don't they don't sting you, so it's not it's not a painful experience, right? Honeybees here in India are particularly nasty. So let's think of honeybees. How did they really get it right? But before we even get there, let's think about what is so special about the beehive. If you look at any given cell, all right, and any given house, if you will, or a dorm room, for a given honeybee, it's got these 6 walls, right? And these little cells, I mean, if you just look at these 6 walls, they actually form a nearly perfect hexagon.
Okay.
Yeah. So now the question is, how did honeybees really get this right? Well, we've talked about food as one source of survival, and in the context of food, we've talked about why the T-Rex had to become a very good hunting machine. Why did it have to, equalize marginal benefits to marginal costs in some sense, right? So let's think of honeybees, right? So honeybees are great economists, by the way. At least they had it right without taking formal lectures by Paul Samuelson or John Nash or any other economic greats. So here's the thing. So just like food is essential for survival, so is shelter. You can be avoided by prey. If you are if you have a comfortable home to live in, right? Nobody just barges in. You also have security. It's not just one honeybee that's living in the beehive. There's so many honeybees living like an entire unit. A family of sorts. So if you were to think about the honeybee story, what is it that really forced honeybees to get it right, to get that perfect hexagon? Now, mathematically, it is easy to show that for any given perimeter, the greater the number of sides, okay, the greater is the area, right? So fixed perimeter, let's just say that you have wood of length 1, all right? You could make a perfect square out of it, right? Where each of the lengths is 1/4, right? Or you could think of a perfect hexagon, each length being 1/6. You could even think of an equilateral triangle with each length 1/3. A pentagon, a regular pentagon with each length equaling 1/5, right? And so on and so forth, right? Now, the thing is that, if you were to take a pentagon, right, how many pentagons can you stack together? And the idea is very simple. So, what is the sum of angles for a pentagon? I think it's 540 degrees, right? Which essentially means that for a regular pentagon, every angle is 108 degrees. Now, if you were to stack up three pentagons together, you will basically end up exhausting 108 plus 108 plus 108, which is 324 degrees. It'll leave you with a deficit of 24 degrees, right? So you have these walls, and then there's this other wall that is being shared, and each of these angles is 108 degrees. 108 degrees. I'm sorry. All right. Now think of a circle, right? And think of these pentagons, the vertices being at the center of this circle, right? If you have these vertices sum up to 324 degrees, there is a part that is left unused, right? There will be a part, something like that, right? There'll be a part that remains unused, and that the angle of the unused part is basically 24 degrees. Essentially, what I'm saying here is that there is going to be an extra wall that will be built, which will not be shared. Right? Now, a perfect square, a square, which is a regular quadrilateral, right? It actually solves that problem. You can always stack up squares besides each other, like on a chessboard. Right. So there's no gap between any two walls, right? So the thing is that, and if you were to think of these squares as cells, then two individuals living on two different squares could actually be sharing common walls.
Right.
And the best way to economize on the use of resources is to build common walls, right? It doesn't make sense for me to put one square here, put another square there, and put two individuals in each of these cells, because there I have these two additional walls. I could have put them together.
Correct.
With two individuals sharing a common wall, because that saves at least the cost of one wall, right?
Yes.
Similarly, you can stack up equilateral triangles against each other without losing any space at all. I mean, it's very easy to see mathematically. And the largest number of sides that you could do that with happens to be 6. All right. Now, okay, so 6 sides of a regular polygon that basically make sure that
coming together.
Yeah, so there are common walls, right? There's no wastage. You don't have to build an additional wall,
Yes.
right? And for any given perimeter, then if the number of sides, the greater the number of sides, the greater is the area. That is also a well-known mathematical result. Then it just follows that 6 sides uniquely solves this double optimization problem, right? Of leaving no gaps. Yeah, there's this dual optimization problem of A, leaving no gaps, and B, maximizing the area given the perimeter. So, like I said again, honeybees never attended lectures by Johannes Kepler. How did they get it right? The answer is actually in economics. They were forced to get it right. You see, the wax that goes into the building of the hive, okay, it is basically pooped out by honeybees, right? And 8 pounds of honey this way gets converted into 1 pound of wax. It's a steep exchange rate, right? Now the question is, how many individual honeybee trips are we really looking at? Any guesses?
No.
Okay. We're looking at 80,000 individual honeybee trips. 80,000 individual honeybee trips. That's the answer, right? So 80,000 honeybee trips to get all that honey, and then all that honey gets turned into wax in a very steep ratio, right? So what I'm basically saying is that the wax that goes into the construction of these little chambers, the construction of the hive, therefore, is an economically scarce resource. It's an economically costly resource, right? In our standard demand and supply model, what we've understood is that the less the supply, or whenever there's a shortfall of supply, prices tend to rise, right? So we're talking about an economically costly resource for the honeybee, right? And therefore the honeybees can't afford to waste any wax. All right. Now, should the cells be squares, or should the cells be equilateral triangles, or should they be regular pentagons, regular hexagons, regular septagons, and so on and so forth? The answer is already there in front of us. Regular hexagons, because they maximize area, okay, subject to the constraint that no space is left behind. So all the 6 walls are being used. They're all being shared by somebody else. All right. And honeybees really got this right. What is the beauty of this problem here? The beauty is that, think of an architect, or think of a regular builder. All right. So these guys typically interact with each other. They see the larger picture, and then, they work on their individual bits, right? But honeybees, they do it all locally. So there's no larger picture for them. All right. And they basically flap their wings and generate heat, and use the body heat to mold the wax in a way that you get those perfectly shaped hexagons, right? It's a lot of hard work, and it is done in complete darkness. So they are much better construction workers than we are in some sense, right? So what is the bottom line here?
That with time, I think so. Not sure. I mean, if they were always like this, or they have been able to optimize, and they have been able to learn with time,
well,
or they
well,
were.
the bottom line here is that you need to work hard to get real estate. That's not the bottom line. I mean, yeah, honeybees have that in common with us. But if I were to really think of a close cousin of the modern day honeybee, think of the mud dauber wasps. All right. Now, if you look at some of their nests are totally irregular. It's like they don't really spend a lot of time thinking about getting the construction right. Okay. So they don't really think about getting the construction right. The question is, why is that? And the answer is simple, because, the answer is in the name, mud dauber wasps. Mud. They use mud to build their houses, and mud is an economically free resource. It's economically abundant, right? I mean, think about packing your suitcases. Have you ever packed a suitcase? You have, I'm assuming. It's a very common thing, right? If you love going on holidays, you must have packed your suitcases.
Yes.
Now compare yourself in 2 different scenarios. One in which you have an exceptionally large suitcase, and in the other where you have a very small suitcase. All right. My question to you is, when will your packing become more careful?
The second one.
In the second case, right, when your suitcase is very small, because that's when the trade-offs really become very serious. That's when you're actually thinking that, hey, if I were to put this here, what should I be taking out? That's when you're asking that question. You wouldn't have to worry about this question if you were to think about if you actually had a large suitcase with you, right? So space in the second case is a very real economically scarce resource. Right. And whenever you have an economically scarce resource, that's when you're literally forced to optimize your packing. Do you see what I'm saying? So, for example, if you were to carry a second belt, you're wearing one belt, of course. What about the second belt? How would you pack it in your suitcase? What's the most efficient way? Any guesses?
I usually roll it.
Well, so yeah, that's the first instinct, but that's not the right answer.
Okay.
The answer is basically, yeah, just unfurl the belt, just open up the belt, and put it against the edge of the suitcase. So that way you will be occupying the least space.
Least space.
you know.
Right.
So the thing is, we realize it or not, nature has actually forced all of us, not just human beings, to become very, very good economists, right? And these were only two examples that I thought were worthwhile and talking about for now. But if you have more questions, feel free to ask. I mean, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. This is a very exciting and new topic for me. I never thought it this way.
Mhm.
And now that I think of, I can, maybe think of multiple other examples, like the way that pollination takes place, the way that,
Mhm.
the environment is created, the way that we have the ozone layer. I think so. Everything is just apt. It's just the way it should be. And I think so. We can say that some kind of economics has always been involved in nature. Um, so we were not taught these kind of things, and I think so it's very exciting to kind of get away from the usual economic stuff and to kind of
And
learn.
talk about science for a while. Just step back and talk about science. Why not? Yeah.
Absolutely,
Sure.
absolutely. I mean, it's been ages since I have kind of been involved in listening to things like this. So I think so it has been a very exciting and a new topic, not only for me. I think so it would
I'm
be
happy. The honeybee example. I'll be happy to attribute to the book called Scarcity by Sendil Mullainathan and Eldar Shafir.
okay.
Yeah, two fine scientists, I would say. And you know, my only thing is my only message here would be that let's not just think of economics as something that only concerns human beings. It should concern the physicist who's trying to optimize something. It should concern the biologist who's trying to understand why things are the way they are. It should concern everybody who's involved in the sciences. The truth is that it's not just economists who think about trade-offs. We may be slightly better equipped in thinking about them, but in reality everybody faces trade-offs. Think from the perspective of the deer. That's or think of a common ancestor to the modern deer, who would have enjoyed munching through bushes. All right. And then at some point in time it must have happened that you hear a slight gush. There are two possibilities. The null hypothesis is that it's completely out of danger. It's just a gush of wind. The alternate hypothesis is that there is a predator waiting there, right, to make the kill. All right, to go for the kill. Now, what are the two possible errors that you could be making? A type 1 error where you're rejecting the null and not rejecting the alternate, in which case it's just a gush of wind, but you assume
That it is.
that it's a lion,
Right.
right? A predator, right? You will actually run without any reason,
Absolutely.
right? Now, it's a relatively less costly. I mean, of course, you're running for nothing. You're expending some energy, but it's a relatively harmless cost to think about, right? Think about making the
The other
other error,
error
the
is that.
type 2 error, right? Which is to not reject the null when it is false,
Right.
right? So now there is a predator there, but you just assume it to be a wind, the gush of wind, right? Something harmless. You're dead meat, right? So over here, the cost of making a type 2 error is much, much higher than the cost of making a type 1 error, right? And if you look at how we've evolved, we've therefore, at some level, been programmed by nature to be a little risk averse, right? So if you have a flight to catch, uh, at least among us Indians, there's this tendency to reach 3 hours ahead of
Right.
time, 4 hours ahead of time, right? So we tend to assume the worst possible case, because that's what nature has actually conditioned us to do, right? I mean, the best thing in the absence of information, a priori absence of information for that ancestor of ours, was to basically assume the worst every time and go and just run. You know,
Right.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I think so. This is a very, very exciting topic. And, just before you suggested this topic to me sometime back, I was curious to understand different aspects of it. And then I read this paper by Das Gupta on the concept of optimal population, how
Mhm.
optimal population is attained with time, and how nature plays a role in it. So
Sure.
I think so. Nature acts like an economist, literally everywhere. The Kuznets curves that we teach. I mean, of course, that's more
Think
of.
about the human brain. Think about the human brain. Have you ever given a presentation and have forgotten to, take out your pen drive, your USB drive, flash drive?
No, thankfully not.
But okay, have you forgotten your wallet
Yes,
or your purse?
multiple
Right?
times.
And okay, and and when have you been more likely to forget that wallet? On a state of urgency?
Yes,
In the state of jaldbazi,
correct.
uh, I mean, think about a regular real life example where you know that you have to make it to a meeting on time, right? So you're busy getting the meeting briefs together at one place. You're also busy booking the cab just to make sure that the cab arrives well in time. And then finally, when you run down the stairs and sit in the cab, and once you're already on the way, in the middle of your journey to the office, you forget that you've forgotten to carry your wallet.
Right,
Right? Now the question is, why does it happen? The answer is that the human brain is also a very good economist. The idea is that the human brain actually looks at what is the immediate objective, and most of your cognitive resources are being spent in order to meet that objective. There's literally a tunnel of focus that is being created on that particular objective. You see what I'm saying, right? Which essentially means that some other things, no matter how important, that have been left out of that tunnel. All right. In this case, remembering to carry your wallet, important, but it just wasn't something that the brain was really focused on.
right.
Do you
Yes,
see what I'm saying? When you see a tiger in front of you, right? Think about why is it that we are instinctive in some cases, and why when being contemplative on the whole is more beneficial. And the answer is because instincts are very important when it comes to quick decisions. So suppose you and I, we were to walk to a forest and we are taking this wonderful stroll, and there's a tiger right in front of us. Now you are the instinctive individual and I'm the contemplative individual. So let's just assume that I analyze everything. There's this tiger in front of us, and I look at this tiger. I take a good look at it, and my first thought is, okay, um, this creature is big. It looks hungry. Step two. Step three. Uh, it has canines. Step four. I'm on the menu. Step five. Run. Right. You, on the other hand, you're instinctive. You're going to forget steps one, two, three, four. You're going to forget thinking about the first four steps of thought, and your mind is going to tunnel on the word on step five, on the word run. Your mind is going to create a tunnel on the word run, and you're going to run immediately. Now the question is, between the two of us, who has a greater survival advantage?
of course, me.
You see what I'm saying? So um, there are a great deal of stories that economics can really that at least some training in economics can really help us in understanding, and these stories could very well be scientific in nature. And I mean, you could just think of this conversation to be one aimed at getting the people of the sciences interested in economics, if you will. So
And I think so you are doing a good job in that, and especially because you have launched the course in IIT, it is going to definitely be it's going to create something new for the people, also for students.
well, it's always good to think about new things, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
So I think so it would be very exciting to someday attend your class and be a part of that also. I mean,
By all means, the T-Rex is my favorite example on an introductory note to economics.
okay, okay.
Yeah.
Right. I still remember, like ours, I mean, in my college life, it used to be those PPC curve, PPF curves, and it used to be those weapon versus bread examples that used to be given.
Yeah,
So
guns versus butter. Yeah.
yeah, that the fixed examples that Mankiw book had and Don Bush had. Those were the examples that we had, at least in our first class. So I think so it's very interesting. And
Well, they're still relevant examples, to be fair, right? But yeah, nonetheless, I think the idea that only human beings are capable of thinking about trade-offs, I just feel that needs to change.
right.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time, sir. It was
It's always a pleasure, talking to young students. I wish you all the best with wherever you're going, and keep up the good work. It's good to share these stories, and I'll be happy to um, know what all great things you're doing from here on. Yeah.
sure. Thank you so much for your time, sir. Thank you.
Take care. Good talking to you.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye.
Same.